So, hello, good morning, everybody. So once again, my name is Derek Smith, the color guy for those who were here yesterday. For those who weren't here yesterday morning, you'll find out what the color guy was all about later on if you want to talk about that. So today I'm talking about how to start successful conversations. Now, if it has not gotten into your head yet from Professor Bill yesterday and Emerella this morning, and from the workshop you did from Job Search yesterday, networking's a little bit important to job search. Have you found that out yet? Has it been really, because we haven't done drilling that into you yet. You're going to find out more about that later. So one of the biggest concerns we get from students is, I get this networking thing, right? It's important. This is how people find jobs. This is a great thing. And we're actually going to give you opportunities to meet people. So there is a job fair tomorrow. So do remember that. We're actually having a recruitment fair tomorrow. So networking's great. I'm not going to go into about how to make connections and stuff like that, because that's not the purpose of this talk. My purpose of the talk is this. Let's say you've met someone, all right? So you've taken our advice, you've gone to a fair, you've talked to someone who knows someone, you've connected with them, and they look at you and they say the words you hope they never say to you. You know what those words are? You've shaken hands. You've exchanged names. They say, "It's so nice to meet you. Can you tell me about yourself?" Aren't those the most dreaded words in the world? Right? Like, I do a lot of interview practice, and this is the number one question that most people dread having to answer, right? Tell me about yourself. Who hates this question? Who absolutely, oh, it's horrible, isn't it, right? Why do you hate this question? You get stuck. Okay, why do we hate this? Why do you hate this question?
Try to get out the most important stuff in a short period of time.
Exactly, right? Who else said this kills me, this question, I can't stand it, right? Why do you hate this question? I don't know what to say, right? Do I tell them my name, that I like the color blue and I like long walks on the beach? I mean, what are the things I'm supposed to share with these people? So that's what we're going to do in our time together today, is look at what to talk about, and we're actually going to start off with what not to say. So here's the thing. You hear these words networking, we all have our concerns. But what I want to ensure you, that really networking is about conversation. And that's what my focus is here going to be with you today. It's not a sales pitch. I despise the word pitch, even though it says pitch on your handout here because I couldn't change the PDF. I don't like the word pitch, okay? And most employers don't like the word pitch. Why is that? Because that's salesy, right? I'm going to pitch you. I'm going to try to manipulate you. And it's another way people think about that word, isn't it? I don't like it. So we're not going to look at that. I don't want you to pitch someone. I don't want you to manipulate someone. I don't want you to try to, swoon someone to want to talk to you. Employers don't have time for it. They don't like it. So our focus is going to be about conversation and how to introduce yourself to create conversation. That's what this is about. Is how can you talk about yourself in such a way that someone's going to say, that's interesting. Can you tell me more about that? And that's what our goal is going to be for our talk today. So I want to assure you that this is not a sales training seminar, okay? I'm not here to, see who can get the most business cards. It's not about that. It's about how can you actually talk with someone. Again, it's talk with someone, not talk to someone. Talk with someone to get them engaged in conversation to hopefully build into something a little bit more. But to understand what to do, I want to start off with what not to do. Has anybody seen the movie Up? That is considered, by the way, that that 10-minute introduction, that is considered one of the saddest introductions to any movies out there. It's like, that breaks my heart every time. But if you've watched Up, you know who this is, don't you? Let's meet Russell and look at how not to begin a conversation. Probably have to go through an ad first. So let's get through the ad. And let's meet Russell.
Good afternoon. My name is Russell, and I am a wilderness explorer in Tri-54. What Lodge 12. Are you in need of any assistance today, sir?
No.
I could help you cross the street.
No.
I could help you cross your yard.
No.
I could help you cross your porch.
No.
Well, I gotta help you cross something.
No, I'm doing fine.
Good afternoon. My name is Russell, and I am a wilderness explorer and scientist.
Okay. That was funny, wasn't it? We love Russell. He's such a cute kid. Who is afraid of being Russell when you're talking to someone? Now, I don't really like to use the word wrong, okay, because it's very negative. But what did Russell do that we shouldn't do when meeting with someone for the first time? Go ahead.
He didn't like look at the guy at all. He just has that in the book. It was just reading off the script. It was obviously scripted.
It was obviously scripted. What else did Russell do that we shouldn't be doing when meeting with someone for the first time? Go ahead. Didn't come. I think he came prepared, but maybe not the way he should have come prepared, right? Maybe over-prepared. Okay, so let's look at the opposite, because you can be over-prepared. Let's take one more. What did Russell do you shouldn't do?
It wasn't genuine. It was kind of one-sided. He didn't let the other person.
That was it right there. It wasn't genuine, right? Now, Russell was a great kid, right? There was no harm in what he wanted to do. There was no malice on his behalf. I think we can all agree on that, right? Russell actually had a genuine desire to help out. I think we could all agree on that. But it was the way he applied wanting to help out, I think we could look at for improvement. And it's much like you. I believe everybody in this room has genuine good intentions when you're meeting with an employer, right? You're not there to manipulate. We're not that. We're not there to, swindle or anything such as that. We are genuinely good, honest people who want to create genuine good relationships. Just like Russell did. But we have to do better than that. And I think what happened here was this idea of the script in mind of saying exactly the same thing and not even getting to know the person first. So remember, it's about conversation. And as much as we think Russell's cute and he's nice and he again had good intentions, was there conversation in that at all? Was there engagement in there at all? His sole concern was just dumping information. And we saw the result. Now, eventually, the old man has sympathy on Russell and decides to meet with them and take him in and stuff, but it took a little while and persistence. So what I want to focus on with you today, then, is how can we have the great intentions, but have the positive result of someone wanting not to slam the door in our face, but for someone to say, you know what, that's really interesting. Can you tell me more? So, what we need to start looking then is how to introduce ourselves in such a way that gets a person engaged. Again, we're going to look at the word engagement in conversation in about 30 seconds. And why we say 30 seconds is the average human has got about that much attention span before we make a decision on someone. Think about it. When you're meeting someone for the first time, we've all met people before the first time, how long before you make a judgment about them, right? It's usually about that 30-second mark before we decide I want to invest in this conversation or I need to find a quick exit out of this conversation. So we need to think about it a way to create that engagement. And again, it's a genuine engagement in about that 30 seconds or so. So where can we use this? It can be used anywhere. These are just some sample ones. So yesterday you did a networking fair, right? And you had a chance to have people tell you their story a little bit. And I'm sure a couple of them looked at you and said, tell me about yourself. But there's other ways you can do it. Tomorrow we have a recruitment fair. So we have actual employers. And you know what? You get to meet them. And you know what they're going to say to you? Tell me a little bit about yourself. So you can have that opportunity there. But this can happen in informational interviewing. It can happen in informal settings. So we need a way to create that connection. So let me give you an example where I actually saw this done successfully in a very natural way with someone. I used to work at Ryerson back in the day, and I loved to walk Yonge Street during my lunchtime. So I was walking down Yonge Street, and right in front of me was a young guy, and he was walking, and a guy bumps into him and goes, "Hey man, I haven't seen you in ages. What have you been up to?" And the guy looks at him and goes, "Oh hey man, yeah, I'm over here at Ryerson studying engineering." He's like, "Oh yeah, what's that all about?" And they just went in this huge conversation. That's a genuine connection. where someone just knew what to talk about and get someone else engaged and involved. So it can happen anywhere, but we need to know what to say. The other thing too is we got to be careful of the Russell scenario of having the script that we read it word by word. That's not my goal with you, is to have a memorized shtick that you're going to share with every single person you meet, because again, that's very pitchy. My goal with you today is to have some ideas of what you can talk about, but to also be more orange and be flexible to adapt it depending upon whom you're talking to. And that's another key component as well, is understanding whom you're talking to, because you can alter what you're saying depending upon the scenario and the situation. But the big issue is when we went around understanding why people don't like telling me about yourself, is a lot of you haven't thought about actually what to talk about, or what to share, or how to share it. So again, I want to take that from the understanding of any conversation. Depending on who you're talking to, you say different things. So let's think about things to talk about. So potential things. Name, okay, you can potentially do that. Of course, if you've met the person just now, you don't have to give your name again, okay? But again, these are suggestions depending upon the scenario, because some of these might take priority over others. So for example, academic background studies. That scenario gave you with that student on Yonge Street, that was a great way. Hey, I'm at Ryerson studying, engineering. Hey, I'm at UTSC doing biomedical technology. Or I'm a business student right now at UTSC. So sometimes you can share that. But do you know what I recommend not talking about being an academic student? Think about this. Networking event, okay? A student networking event. And you, first things out of your mouth is, I'm a UTSC student. Now, that's not a bad thing. Again, I have on the list here as a potential thing to talk about. But you're at a student UTSC networking event. So the first thing out of your mouth is, I'm a student at UTSC. What's a potential concern with starting that way? Just starting that way. What's the concern with that, do you think?
It's already kind of there.
It's obvious, right? Every single person they're about to meet is a UTSC student. So tomorrow at the job fair, every employer that's going to meet someone has met another UTSC student. So starting off that way may not be the greatest way in that conversation because they've just heard it 20 other times. So again, remember I said it depends on your scenario. Now, starting with your program, maybe that's something different because you're all not from the same program. So this is when you have to learn the flexibility of, I'm with 50 other students right now. Maybe saying I'm a student is not the greatest introduction because I'm going to sound just like every other person. So this is when we need to look at some other things, such as interests, skills, or qualities, or experience. Maybe instead of starting off with I'm a UTSC student, maybe talk about some of the things you're doing that are projects or accomplishments while you've been here, or something to get them more engaged. Hi, my name is Derek, and I just finished a project for this club I'm a part of here at school. We just did this huge event where we had 200 people come out to it. My first thought would be, what? Can you tell me more about that? So maybe sometimes start off with something different that's unique to you. This is how you can avoid the Russell scenario. Because Russell was going to use that same script with every single person he was about to meet, right? No change. So maybe think of something different about you that could be unique. You know what I call this? I call this your cool factor. If any of you have ever done a resume or cover letter with me or interview, I talk to you about what's called your cool factor. What's your cool factor? It's that thing you say that makes me go, that's cool, I want to know more about that. Now, I just finished, anybody here in management co-op by any chance? No one here? Okay. I just finished helping the students getting into management co-op. It's a first-year student trying to get in. They have to write a resume and cover letter. I just went through several dozen of these, which meant I had to help students find out what their particular cool factor was to get noticed for the competitive program of management co-op. So there's many different things. So for example, I had a student in his cover letter, the first thing he wrote in his cover letter was, I love soccer, but I could never play professionally. So what did I do? I started my own league. I'm like, that's really cool. Can you tell me more about that? I had another student, right? She started off saying, that she had a friend who was sick, and she helped create a benefit concert for them. So you want to start thinking about what's cool or different, that when you introduce yourself, tell me something that wants me to go, what? I want to know more about that. Again, depending where you are. If you're at a networking event that there's no other students, then saying, hey, I'm a new graduate from UTSC studying this. That's a good way to start because you might be the only one. So do you see how you can change it up depending where you are? So my advice for tomorrow is remember, every single recruiter is meeting a UTSC student. So I'm not saying you're not special, but everybody else is the same. Now your program might be different, so you might start with that, but how about start with something else for them to go, what? I want to know, tell me more what that's all about. Now this requires you to think a little bit, because most of you haven't thought this way before. But to find jobs, I used to be a recruiter. I was the person who had this on my desk of resumes, who had to get it down to about here to phone call. And when I saw those cool factor things in those resumes and cover letters, those are the ones I said, I got to talk to this person. They sounded different. They were unique. So think about what those things are for yourself. Okay, we got some examples. We got the name Jane Doe. I got your name from my cousin Christo. So remember we talked about informational interviewing networking. That's a great way to start off if you're meeting someone for the first time, if you have that connection with them. You can talk about your background. Again, great, especially again if you're one of the few people or you're not the only one there, or you're the only one there who's recently graduating. But hear about this, right? I've been running an investment simulation since first year, focused on securities. My products have been doing well. That's a cool factor thing. So do you see, right? We got the genericness, and then we're going down to something a little bit different. So you got to think about those things to get that engagement going. You can do a request of a goal. I want to meet, maybe meet with you, talk more information. Amarella today talked about informational interviewing. So this is a great way you can go to the next step. I like to spend 15, 20 minutes talking to you sometimes about things. So let me do some actual pitches with you. This is from PwC. For those who don't know PwC, Price Water Company, they are a large financial firm, considered one of the big four in the Toronto area. A video they've put out. Now, these are students giving their pitch. Please do understand that this is a sample video, so these are actors. Okay, well, students being actors. But you're going to see examples of different types of pitches, which I hate the word of, so maybe say introductions of how to talk about yourself and not to talk about yourself. So let's take a look at this. It's frozen.
Hi, my name is James, and I'm a finance major. Hi, my name is James, and I'm a finance major.
Hi, I'm Andrea, and I'm a business major.
Hi, I'm Joe, and I'm an accounting major. Hi, I'm Joe, and I'm an accounting major.
I'm Ed. And so I'm the oldest out of 5 kids. I'm the president of the Organization of African Students. My leadership experience has prepared me for my career. I have been the residence assistant for 3 consecutive years, the head teller at my local bank. Also, I have been the president of the Organization of African Students. I have volunteered a lot of time at my local church. And lastly, I'm the oldest out of 5 kids. I could hand up anybody.
Hi, I'm Pat. I'm an accounting and philosophy major. I didn't really love accounting, but I fell in love with philosophy when I first got to school. And I also was very into my intramural hockey team. Hi, my name is Pat. I'm an accounting and philosophy major. And you might be asking yourself, well, that's a strange combination. But what I loved about it was that I used my creativity in my philosophy major, and I got a great management experience in my accounting. I think this is going to be a great mix for when I start in the business world.
Majoring in business, I got to take a lot of different classes. I studied accounting, I had finance, IT, there were statistics, marketing too, but I also took classes in art history and English because I wanted to have a well-rounded education. I didn't want to be too narrow. So I did that. I did a lot of stuff outside of class too. I played some intramural volleyball, which was really fun. I'm a business major, but I've also taken a lot of liberal arts classes to round out my education. In addition to my studies, I've been a peer mentor to a younger classmate, as well as played on an intramural volleyball team. While they may seem like different activities, they both helped me with my communication skills as well as my team building.
So, do you like me?
Thank you. Appreciate your time. I hope you enjoyed watching my videos as much as I enjoyed making it. Thank you for your time.
So let's talk about what we just saw, right? Again, it's a demo, but did you notice the difference between some of them? Okay, let's go through some of what we saw. In some cases, there was no preparation whatsoever. Like I said, we don't want to be Russell and literally having a sheet in front of us, reading it over, because there's no engagement there. But did you notice with a few of them, they were just listing off stuff that came off to the top of their head without any focus or purpose? So yeah, there were some neat things in there that could generate conversation, but it was so unstructured, and you could tell they weren't quite focused on what they were wanting to talk about. So do have a plan. Do think about, what do I want to mention and talk about? If you notice with some of them, like there was the two of them there, the one with the philosophy major, right? The first time he just kind of rambled things off and just didn't have a connection for it. And the second time he was like, here's why I took this major. It made something different. And then you have the one who was talking about being in the intramural volleyball team as well, right? She was able to connect that together because she had thought about how that would work together. So do take the time to create your structure. Just don't sit there and read it like Russell did. There was that one girl we see up here as well, right? Do you see how she added a little bit of a personal connection to it as well? I'm youngest, was the oldest of 5 kids, I think she said. I can handle anything. We all chuckled at that because we connected with her instantly. I would love to sit down and have a talk with her, right? Just to find out more about that, because she made the connection, which takes me to another part about creating a good connection as well. If you notice between the before and after, one big thing was how they presented themselves physically. So let's talk about some of the before ones we saw. How did some of them show themselves physically? Like, what were their facial expressions like in their body language? What did you notice in some of them?
Very tired.
Some of them looked tired. What about some of the other ones that you noticed that was not what we should be doing?
Some of them had like, I don't care attitude.
Like maybe a bit of like that one guy with the baseball cap and all that. He's like, whatever. Okay, over here.
Some were so close and so nervous that it looked like that they were clenching their hands in prayer.
Yeah, some of them are like, I'm so scared right now, right? So presentation, when it comes to talking about yourself, is actually, believe it or not, potentially more important than what you actually might be saying. Here's why. Any psych students we got in the class here? A couple psych students, right? So let's talk about psychology and communication. When it comes to communication, we communicate typically on 3 levels. What we say, how we say it, and how we act. Now, for most students and why you're here today, you want the first part of communication. What should I say? And that's extremely important, right? This is why we're going to have a script here that you can take a look at and things to think about. But when it comes to communicating with people, what we say is the least important part of communication, believe it or not. That's the script. Russell had a great script. But why didn't it work? Because there's 2 other parts to communication that were missing. The second part of communication is how we say things. That's what the person hears. That's our pacing, volume, inflection, and tone. I can often tell, I do a lot of mock interviews. By the way, we do mock interview service. So if you do want to practice some of this presentation with us, you can book an appointment. We'll sit down and practice with you. But I can always tell when a student has memorized their answers to me. Not necessarily because what they're saying, but it's how they're saying it. Because when a person like Russell, did he sound natural? No. It was very robotic and choppy. It didn't have a natural cadence, as we call it, when speaking with someone. But then there's how we act. Overwhelmingly, when it comes to communication, the body language we project to others tells far more about us than anything else. Have you ever noticed that? You ever people watch? Let's put it another way. Have you ever just looked at one of your friends and can just tell they're having a really bad day by them not saying anything to you? How can you do that? It's because their body is projecting what's really going on. So you can say all the right things. You can have the most perfect script, like Russell had, but your presentation itself can destroy everything. So how can we create that connection? Remember, this is about conversation. It's about engagement. So how can we do that? Do you know what the easiest way to do that when you're speaking to someone is? It's called this. A smile. You're all wonderful students, and most of the students I meet are awesome. But the second I'm in an interview situation with them and say, can you go and tell me about yourself? Do you know what they do? I'm a third-year student. I'm majoring in this. My major projects are the following, blah, blah. Okay, no. Okay? Instantly, there's that disconnection. The greatest way to create connection with someone when you're meeting them is actually look at them and put the biggest smile on your face. Think about it. If you're walking down and you make eye contact with someone and they smile at you and say hi, You're like, oh, hi. You just instantly feel a little bit different and better about them. How important is communication? You're all graduating, right? So I can talk about professors. You have a couple different types of professors, but let's talk about the one type of professor. You have this one type of professor that could be teaching you the most important information, could be the most amazing stuff. But because of their delivery, you're like, it's been 5 minutes only. You know the one I'm talking about, right? The monotone, the no enthusiasm, right? You know the one I'm talking about? They could be talking about something that's so important to you, but how much do you learn from them? How many notes are you taking? You're like, this is just hard. And it's just because of the delivery. Then you could have another professor that could be teaching you the most boring material, but because they're up there talking to you, engaging and looking at you and smiling, how fast does that 50 minutes go? You're like, we're done? I remember we had a student in childhood development, okay? I took psych as well. So childhood development, we hated hating this guy, okay? Because he had the hardest class. He had the hardest tests. Like everything was like, oh, why is he so brutal? But I really, really like him. And the simple reason was because he was just nice. He was professional, but he was funny, and he smiled and engaged us. So we hated hating him because he was so hard. Want to make a great connection with someone with your introduction? Why not smile? In fact, how do you feel when you smile when speaking to someone? How do you feel? Do you feel better? Get used to practicing it, because not everybody's a natural smiler. And I give this actual advice to people when they have an interview coming up, and if they were grumpy bumpy in my interview and all frowny, I say, I want you to practice smiling everywhere, smiling walking down the hall, smiling talking to people. Because one, you feel better. Two, you're going to get used to it. And it becomes natural and you feel better about yourself. You do feel more confident. Just look at the people you saw up here, right? The ones who were smiling, like her, for example. Even though her first answer was kind of all over the place, I still kind of liked her because she was nice. So practice it. So the nonverbal is so important. Posture, eye contact, smiling, the positive relaxed tone, the pace of delivery, all these things are so important. Here's a little tip for tomorrow, okay, or any job fair you're going to. They see you before you see them. This also goes for your interviews when you're sitting there on that couch. I can always tell when it's interview day because I see students, like you said, holding on for dear life in prayer. They're just sitting there like, oh, I got an interview. You can just tell by their body language. They see you before you see them. So let them see something that's positively memorable. Smiling, good eye contact, good posture. Okay? Your phone does not come out at any event unless you say, can I connect with you on LinkedIn right now? That's the only time this should come out. Because let's face it, remember talking about body language and stuff? You want to approach me, okay? And I'm sitting there doing this. You want to come talk to me? Why not? I'm on my phone. Put it away, unless you're connecting on LinkedIn. So think about things you can talk about. What makes me stand out? But also target yourself. Remember I said you need to adjust depending upon where you're going. So what industry am I targeting? Or who am I talking to? Who am I introducing myself to? So you want to adjust depending upon where you're going. So if you're going to an event, for example, who's going to be there? What kind of jobs are they hiring for? Maybe you can adjust what you're speaking about yourself to match up. Hi, John. I understand that at your company right now you're doing the ABC projects. I actually just finished doing something for that in my class. Do you want to hear more about that? So if you can target that way, that engages in the conversation. So do your preparation work. Again, don't go to Russell levels of just reading a script, but do your prep work. So you have a handout I gave you, okay? So we're calling it a script. Again, I don't like the word script, so I want to use this more as a guide. Let's think of it that way. It's a guide. It's giving you focus of things you could potentially talk about. So on this here, I'm going to give you a few minutes because we're finishing at 12, so we'll hopefully get this done. I'm going to give you a couple minutes that let's pretend this is a networking event, okay? This is a networking event. I'm a recruiter. You want to meet me, but these are all UTSC students as well. All right, so remember I talked about that earlier, that everybody else is also a student. We bump into each other. I say, hi, it's nice to meet you. And I say the dreaded words, please tell me about yourself. What is something you could say to engage me in conversation that makes me go, that's interesting? Can you tell me more about yourself? I'm going to give you a couple minutes to think about that. And then we'll go to the next step. Go ahead. Give you a couple minutes. What would you say if I was the recruiter in a UTSC networking event where everybody else is a student that makes me go, that's interesting. I want to talk to you more about that. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, I can't hear you. Okay, come on down. So just take a moment, again, meeting with me. You can say your name if you want, that's fine. But what would you say to get me engaged? Could be a future goal that you have, a project you just finished, something. Another great way to begin is motivation. Why are you interested in the field you're going into? Why are you interested in the program you just finished? That's a nice way to begin too, is the why. Hi, my name is Derek, and you know what? I love career counseling because I get to help people understand their stories and their lives. There's an introduction, right? That's one sentence. So maybe talk about your why. All right. Because I know you want lunch, and I'm the last thing standing between you and eating, so let's move on to this next step here. Who here would like to try it with me right now? Give it a shot, get some feedback, and tell me about yourself in 30 seconds. Got a person right over here. Fantastic. What's your name?
Helena.
Can we give her a hand? She's about to talk to you. Okay. So you can stay where you are, and we'll get down and come to you. So, again, scenario, networking event, I'm a recruiter, we just shook hands, we just introduced each other. I look at you, say the dreaded words. So tell me about yourself.
Well, I'm a computer science student studying here. The program is actually really cool. For example, last fall, we were working in teams to program a soccer playing robot. You can sort of guess the result from that. We got some very aggressive robots attacking each other. It was really hilarious.
So we're talking like Transformers attacking each other?
I wish, but it's more like robots ramming each other in the face or ramming each other at different angles. And I feel like they forgot the ball at some point.
Oh my goodness.
On the bright side, I learned one thing. I can actually program pacifistic robots.
Pacifistic robots. That's cool. Can you tell me more? That's it. We're good. I did that. That's it. You did it. Thank you. As soon as I said, that's cool, tell me more, that introduction she gave me did its job. Right there. That's all it had to do. Because now she can tell me everything that I need to know. Now, she started off with a program, which is fine, right? But what did she rely on to get me engaged? There was a story there. There was something of interest there that I want to know more about. I'm like, was that Transformers? There was a show that used to be on called BattleBots. I don't remember if we used to watch that or not. I'm like, is that like what it was? So now I want to know more about that. That's cool. That's the kind of stuff to get a person engaged. Now, Helena there can adjust that depending upon who she's meeting with and talking to, but that's just a quick example of how to do it. All right. Now, because we started late, I would normally have time to practice with you each other. We don't run out of time. So, because we started about 5 minutes late there. But let's look at the reflection, okay? Practice your profile, practice with each other, make an appointment with us. You can come and try it with us just to get comfortable doing this and trying it out, becoming natural. It also will help you with the confidence. Look for opportunities to do that. Again, we'll have tomorrow, we're going to ask, so tomorrow, for example, we're going to have 2 great opportunities. We're having 5 recruiters coming in the afternoon to do a panel. And then they're all going to be also going to the fair afterwards. This afternoon, you're doing in your room. So here's what's happening next. You're going to 305. So same place as yesterday, HW 305 for lunch, okay? After lunch, you're going back to your job search room after lunch. So where you were in your job search room yesterday, you're going back there for a demo interview. So you're actually going to see an actual interview with an actual recruiter and an actual volunteer student. And then you get to try that out. That's a person you can speak to. They're not actually bringing real recruiters from your industries coming in. Always look for the opportunities to be able to network and connect with other people, okay? Short time with each other, but I do thank you for coming in, okay? This is a start of how to be cool and talk about yourself. Again, with getting TD Insurance, so head over to HW305 for lasagna, and then back to your job search room for interview, and then after that, you can do 2 more concurrent sessions, all right? We'll see you at lunch.